Welcome to CBS Cosmic Brothers and Sisters, where we introduce you to your families from across the stars and beyond, and no AI is ever necessary, just your favorite tinfoil hat. Go get yours on, I have mine on, because today Randy is telling Emory all about the way different kinds of species he saw in the secret space program. You're not going to want to miss it. Grab your favorite tinfoil hat. I've got mine on. Let's go!
Any other different looking species that you could relate to that look like species here on Earth, like our animals and fish?
Yeah, I mean, again, there were a few aquatic species that existed in a fluid environment. So there was cephalopods. There was a species that I would have to say seemed maybe almost shark-like, if you can think of what an intelligent shark might look like with two tentacles for arms. So like a shark body with two tentacles. It was very peculiar. But again, big mouth, big teeth like a shark. So imagine that they...
But a vegetarian?
No, they were carnivores. They were meat eaters. But not like they were looking at us like food, but they definitely were meat eaters.
So you didn't feel threatened by them?
No, not at all. I mean, we were certainly separated by a barrier. They were in basically a box of a fluid environment, and we were on the other side. So it felt safe enough. It was one of the creepier, I guess, instances. But yeah, we felt safe enough because we were on the other side and in a safe space where, people didn't scuffle with each other, didn't have to worry about getting eaten in the intergalactic space station.
I've also heard you speak of these worms on Mars. Is it on Mars, these worms?
The centipedes?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Let's talk about the centipedes and what did they actually look like? Did they look like Earth centipedes?
So the centipedes were a genetically engineered being that the insectoids made and used in combat. So imagine a centipede that's, its width is about 1 meter, that its length is probably almost 20 feet long, mandibles, this wide, rear up like that, and then strike down on top of you. And interestingly enough, the color of their segmentation of their exoskeleton was actually almost fuchsia, almost like a pinkish purple color, which I thought was, they're actually kind of gorgeous, except terrifying. I certainly encountered them enough times in the field that they were absolutely terrifying.
Do they use any type of psionic activity to control you or anything?
No, the centipedes, I would say, were not highly intelligent. They were not like less intelligent than a dog, but they were certainly not as intelligent as you or I would be either.
But they acted on their own.
They acted on orders from the drones, from the insectoid drones, but they also seemed to know what their sort of guard duties, were. So they weren't necessarily, I think, given specific instructions all the time, but again, maybe like a dog, you could attack, heal, return, or whatever. So there were some basic commands that I think that they responded to.
Sounds like a programming of a being for a search and destroy type mission.
Yeah, they were genetically engineered for the purpose that they were built for. So they were not a natural species that had been domesticated by the insectoids. They were genetically engineered from the ground up as a foot soldier in the field.
Are there others out there, species that have engineered beings strictly for combat use?
Yeah, definitely. So the Draconians do the same thing. They genetically engineer their ground forces, again, basically from the ground up for specific duties, specific purposes, specific tactical protocols. The Insectoids definitely did that, yeah, for sure.
Were you ever exposed to like any birds or avians, any type of extraterrestrials that look like birds?
We encountered a species in the intergalactic space station that I would say was derived evolutionary from an avian species. Where you and I have hair on their head, they had sort of a slick back feather that was basically black, like black feathers. Their skin tone was like an ash gray kind of color. Their appendages were like claws that were less threatening. So, the claws were actually filed down quite a bit so that they could manipulate things with their fingers and so forth. And
did they have four fingers?
Yeah, like a thumb and 3 fingers, so they like 4 digits.
Of course, did they have feathers?
The feathers that they seemed to have left over on their bodies were sort of like a blackish feather, and they were about 6.5 feet tall, maybe. Yeah.
What about their eyes and eye color?
They had like a dark, in the right light, it appeared sort of black, but if there was just the right reflection from another light source, you could see that there was a pupil and an iris underneath what seemed to be a dark, maybe photosensitive covering or film that was over the eye. So most of the time you just looked like you were looking at a black eye, but if the light caught it just right, you could see that there was an iris and a pupil underneath.
Was the pupil round?
It looked round from what I could see, but because you're looking at it through, again, this sort of photosensitive film, it seemed round, to me anyway, from what I could see.
And what about the mouth? Was there a beak? Was there teeth? Was there like a mandible?
Yeah, I'd say that the jaw and the beak may be extended no more than 2 to 3 inches from the face. Was a kind of a whitish, yellowish color.
And where did they live?
I'm not sure exactly where they were from. That wasn't part of the conversation.
Okay. Did these avians have wings or 2 arms, 2 legs? How did they maneuver around?
They were on 2 legs, and the arms, interestingly enough, seem to be this is a kind of weird because I know they were an avian species, but their arms almost looked like a bat arm. So there was a hand at the end of a wing that seemed tucked in. So I never saw one like unfurl, and I seriously doubt that they had flight capabilities at that point, but it was more like a vestigial wing that had, evolved into a hand with digits and phalanges on the end. It was a little peculiar. If I was to take a stab in the dark, I would say that wasn't a natural evolution, that somehow they got to that stage with a genetic tinkering or evolution from some other species.
How did they communicate?
In that particular instance, they communicated through a translator. So there was a biological person who acted as this translator. So they would speak, the translator would translate, we would speak, and the translator would translate back to them.
What did it sound like, their voices?
Like a low whistle and a low click. So if we think of listening to a bird outside and the way that it chirps, think of that as like an avian shouting. And that if that avian or bird was actually speaking in a conversational tone, it would be a much more subdued, low clicks, low whistles, kind of a communication. So when you think of a bird on a tree limb, it's not talking, it's yelling, it's screaming, with its voice.
What's the relationship between the non-human ETs and the human ETs?
Depends, like anything else. So again, 95% of the species that we run into across the board would rather trade. So in any individual situation like that, it has more to do with what their biological and or social civilization needs are and what their resources are, what our biological civilization social needs are and what our resources are, and whether we have something to exchange. An exchange is essentially based on, do we have something that's less expensive cost to trade with them that would otherwise cost them more to get somewhere else or to make or manufacture, mine themselves? Did they have something that's going to cost less than it would cost us to make, mine, or get ourselves or manufacture ourselves?
Whoa! More Aquafarians with Shark Boy. More Insectoids with Centipede Boy. And more Avians with another Bird Boy. Which one's your favorite? Leave a comment and always subscribe to CBS. Here come the credits. No AI is necessary. You must always like your cosmic brothers and sisters.